Good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord. Super excited for segment number 2. There was a lot of shouting in segment number 1. It was mostly done by me because I was coming completely unhinged, and as usual, the mature dads do it.
Well, I got the dad bod, so might as well.
Anyway, we've got Dion Talk Financial Freedom. Dion Talk. Dion, how's it going, my friend?
Howdy, doing great. Ready for round 2.
Perfect. And we've got our friend Mike Zuber from One Rental at a Time. Mr. Zuber, how is it going?
Going pretty well. I was Dion came at me hard. He actually told me I was wrong in video 1, which it hurts my ego, but
Yeah,
I took
how's
it.
that feel?
I took it. Yeah, you're used to it. It was a new feeling, but no, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Otherwise known as every Thursday at 2, 4, and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. So it's all good. I'm always happy to have you guys. I'm super excited that these are going to debut on the Lumberjack Landlord. So the next topic that we wanted to cover was, and one of the things I think we do really well for people is making sure that they know the risks. There are a lot of risks that people spend far too little time talking about when buying investment real estate. And I think it's really, really important that we kind of cover some of those things. Also, some of the risks of STR, short-term rentals. I think very often people go into it and all they're hearing is all the success that people are having. And that's one of the things I'm really proud of is we share our failures. And we've all had them. We've all had them. And thankfully, we've learned from them. They didn't put us out of business all the way. So wanted to jump into this. And Mike, I'll go to you first. Wanted to talk about long-term rental. Talk to me about, we'll just kind of go through the group, kind of that top risk that you see in the long-term rental side at this point in the market.
Yeah, so we're gonna, I call this ping pong, right? So the first one I will talk about with long-term rentals. God, I have so many. I'm actually going to cheat and use a comma or a run-on sentence, so I'll do 2. Ha ha ha. One of them is debt structure, and one of them is betting on appreciation, right? So again, I tell you this as a 22-year vet, somebody who saw the last crash up close and personal. If your debt financing is bad, you can go broke buy and hold financing, right? If you have an adjustable rate mortgage, for example, like the great country of Canada has a lot of, in 2% of loans in 21, but now 12% or 14% of loans, adjustable rate mortgages can be a problem. It may cash flow with your teaser rate, but it won't cash flow when it resets, and you can go broke doing that. The other one that really annoys me is people who bet on appreciation. This is particularly bad in California, right? I happen to live in the Bay Area. I've never hidden that. I spent a year looking in the Bay Area, and the only people that buy rentals in the Bay Area are people who bet on appreciation because nothing cash flows. Nothing cash flows. Yeah. And I was never comfortable with that. So the first 2 things that are rules that you should never not do is it should cash flow day 1, fixed rate debt, and don't bet on appreciation to bail you out. Because if you do and you head into a bad market, you're going to get smoked. I saw it happen last time. So that's the first one. When you think long-term rentals, your debt structure and betting on appreciation. I don't give a rat's ass if you have a 6-figure job and you can hold the negative cash flow. You won't in a bad market. I had buddies of mine who makes multiple 6 figures that bought in Louisiana. And it's in my book. He bought, I forget, 3, 4, 5 homes in Louisiana after the hurricane because of the Katrina hurricane, because of some kind of accounting gimmick. He let them go, right? They went negative. The debt reset, boom, let them go. Strategic default. So again, that's where I start. So I cheated.
That's all right. We don't mind. Do you have any others that you'd like to cover before we ping pong to somebody else?
I'll wait and see where we go next.
Dion, you're up, my man.
Fair enough. The biggest risk with long-term rentals is one that I start the sentence like I'm saying, don't worry about this, but it's actually my biggest concern. And so I'll give the whole quote. Since we've started tracking the data in 1914, there has never been a 5-year period where rents went down. Rents have always consistently gone up. And there have been a few times where they plateaued, but they've never gone down in Class C or B areas. So mostly we invest in those. Some people we know invest in Class A. In 2009, Class A dipped enough to make it look like rents went down, but in C and B, they went up because there was more demand. Market wide. So that's the first part that everybody hears me say. So if they think I'm saying always just buy long-term rentals because rents have always gone up. There are some local markets. Here's the warning. Detroit, when the car manufacturers move away. Silicon Valley, when .com crash hits, that impacts that more than somewhere else. or let's say something like a pandemic hits and all the people living in the major metropolitan areas can remote work and remote homeschool their kids. Rent can soften in the cities that it never has before. So if you are concentrated in one area and you're pulling tenants from one economic driver, or maybe even just two economic drivers, the biggest threat is not doing some of the things I suggest, like diversifying your location. I wouldn't want to start with a 10-unit apartment complex that's going to pull all of its tenants from one little area. I want 3 or 4 duplexes spread out more than 10 miles apart, so I'm getting tenants from different sources. And then I want to diversify the tenant base. If you have all military tenants and then there's a BRAC meeting and that base goes away, that's not good. But if you have about 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired, something can happen with the housing authority. It can be a stock market crash, or Boeing or Amazon can move away. You're going to be okay. So that's, to me, is the biggest threat with long-term rentals that a lot of people don't really talk about, is your market can crash in rents if you don't invest with a couple of diversification strategies in it.
Yeah, so I'd pick up where Dion kind of left off, was on the diversification side. That was something that I recognized in my portfolio was weak. We were 100% market rents, 100%. Everything that we did, no program, no bases, no nothing. And then I started to look at it and I said, oh, interesting. Because I started to try and really understand. And this was due to what you guys have been talking about, the fact that you both split your portfolios and that you have them fractionalized, and diversify, which is great. But then also just kind of putting the cherry on top was an interview that you had done, Zoob, with Rod Cleef, where he basically said, yeah, I had units full of nothing but construction workers.
Yeah.
So when the economy went bang, no one could pay their rent. He's like, literally, because all of them were in construction. And so that was something that, I've started to really look at. And, we kind of have it diversified with, a portion of, so I'll kind of break down the 4 categories that we did. We do kind of a portion of roommate situations. We do Section 8 and housing. We do the nearby base, the naval base. And then we also do student housing. So those are kind of our 4 big pockets. And I'd say not in any of them are we more than 40% of our market. And so I feel much more comfortable going into this next phase than I would if we were going into the 08, 09 situation, because I went from 8 to 3 to 1 in 3 months on my renters. And Dion and I have talked about this a number of times, where it's like, hey, if half people stopped paying, like, I would still be okay. I'd still be able to pay. Yeah, I went from 8 to 1. So that's more than half. And so that won't happen to me again, because we're much more diversified. We're much more solid on our footing. And I think that people really need to understand the risk of not being diversified to that level. And maybe area, but I think what's nice is a lot of areas, if you just pick from different sectors of that area, you can probably get away with it. Dion made a great point of it being more than 2. Like I said, I've got 4. And so I'm pulling from 4 different areas. And I think that that's really what's going to lead to some resilience for me. But Dion, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, you think now that Matt's diversifying a little more like we do, that he might be able to step away from that W-2 anchor that he's got?
I just think we keep sending him Pink Panther and keep reminding him that he's not retired, that he can finally, be a big boy and step out.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Soon.
But not today.
But not today. Yeah. So, Mike, you want to handle topic number 2?
Yeah, let's talk about short-term rentals. I love this. Let's just hit one each.
Yeah.
Because again, I think people need to realize real estate investing. A lot of people talk, again, this is back to video 1 in my 2 hours look on Bigger Pocket, was all the easy button, the get rich quick. So I just want to talk about the downside of 3 or 4 different areas, just so you have a complete view. So, and I wanted to hit long-term rentals first, because that's our bailiwick. Yes. I want to give it a good kick in the nuts, so we're fair to everybody. The next one for me is short-term rentals. I'm a huge fan of short-term rentals, and I don't own any. I don't need to, right? I'm okay. I think short-term rentals, we have Anna Kelly on the channel every Wednesday at 8 a.m., I think. She does it right? She is focused on areas that are short-term rental areas. She's paying up for oceanfront and the amenities and all of that. I have seen over the last year the biggest easy button, Airbnb. And what really annoys me is Airbnb arbitrage.
Oh,
I get it.
yeah.
It works. I see people cutting corners like they always do, right? You get this guru who built up a portfolio of 30, 40, 50, blah, blah, blah. And then you get people that try to emulate, try to copy, and they start cutting corners. Hey, I can't buy that house, but if I buy one a mile and a half down the way, over the freeway, on near the railroad, I can make that work. That should be okay, right? Oh, I'm going to arbitrage in an HOA and not tell my this, or I'm going to do this. People get attracted to these again, I saw it all over my feed, Airbnb checks. Like I get $3,000 for a rental. These people have the same house down the block getting $9,000. I get it, folks. $9,000 is more than 3. I got it. But what I don't like is when people take that easy money and they start, I don't know, cutting corners, not doing the work, down selecting, but overpaying. If you have bought an Airbnb in the last 18 months and you overpaid, where your only answer is you need 80% occupancy and last year's daily rates, you're effed. You're just effed. This just like stimulus ballers. You want to know why Rolexes went nuts last year? It's because we gave money away. Want to know why Rolexes are falling today? Because people got to sell them to pay rent. I think short-term rentals had a nice halo the last 2 years. I think it's going to be very bad. And again, I don't think it's Airbnb's fault. I think it's a great model for the right asset and the right operator. I just don't think there's enough people talking about the downside. If you don't buy the right thing, if you overpay, you don't have the right amenities, you're in a city like San Diego or Oahu or Atlanta that's attacking short-term rentals. I think Airbnb in 2 years hurts more people than it helps. Not Airbnb, the company. I should say short-term rentals. And again, it's not short-term rentals' fault. It's just, it became the latest hot thing, the easy button. And we went from having 200,000 listings to 900,000 listings. And there's just not the demand. So daily rates come down, the people lose money and stuff blows up. So short-term rentals really gets me because it became the latest easy button. Then you add on top of that, oh my God, I don't actually have to own anything. I can arbitrage it. And anytime there's no money down, easy money rains down on you, it's never that easy, folks. It's just never that easy. So that one particularly bugs me.
So Dan, you know what I learned? I'm not letting Mike go first anymore. Go ahead, my man.
So actually, Matt, to help, I have 2 major risks with short-term rental. So why don't you go first so that I don't take what you would talk about, because I'll have one left.
So my biggest pet peeve with short-term rentals is I had a friend build a house for STR.
Oh.
Built a house for STR. And I said, I got to be honest, super skeptical, interested to see how this thing goes. Built the house. It is under 800 square feet.
Oh, tiny.
And it's a 3-bedroom with a, with a unique kind of layout with kind of like 2 bedrooms downstairs, kitchen, living room combined, and then like a little loft up top.
Yeah. So
interesting, unique, but small footprint. I talked to him yesterday or 2 days ago. This 3-bed, 1-bath that would normally rent out, if it were just a regular old house, it would normally rent out for probably about $3,000. He in July will do 10 grand on that property.
10 grand is more than 3.
It is. It's true. Let me double. Yep, it is. So the good news is that for him that worked. And I said, so what does the winter look like? Right? Because we're very seasonal. It's Siberia here, And so per someone I know well. And so I think what's really interesting is that he's got September basically booked, but he even started talking about like October, where he said, yeah, if they take a week, I give them a half rate. And I said, okay. And he's like, and I said, well, that's really good. Now he's got an advantage. He is brand spanking new. Everything is brand new in the place. It's perfectly laid out. It's perfectly landscaped. It's everything. And his competition is 100-year-old homes that might look nice, but that aren't to the caliber that his are with, great decorating. And like he and his wife did an amazing job. So I think the cautionary tale that I would leave out there for folks is there will be competition. Like the guys who were doing STRs 3 years ago, there is like 5, 6, 10, 12x the number of apartments or places available STR now than there were that long ago in a lot of different markets. So I think that yes, there's the quality argument, but I think that you have to look at what product you're bringing to market for that STR and compare it to the others, because people will have a choice. Will they down select based on price? And what really is your break even? Because if I'm doing the math, like basically if he's rented out for about 10 days, he makes about the same thing that I do. The only difference is that I know that he has to do a lot of touching that, which is clean sheets and clean this and take care of that and talking to this person, like F that, I'm out. And
Yeah.
so good for him. But that's what I think the risk is in STRs, is that people better beware with inventory coming in that market, 80 down to 50. You better make sure that you have top quality product that is a major differentiator for you wherever you are. If the differentiator isn't sand on the beach and water 10 feet away, if that's not your difference. So Dion, thank you for your graciousness for letting me go in front of you, because I know I didn't take one of yours.
Nope, you didn't. That's pretty cool. Neither one of you touched on mine. The first one, which I think is the most obvious, most talked about concern, well, actual threat to short-term rentals, is rule and regulation change. You have HOA, municipality, states, you have large chains like Hyatt, DoubleTree, all of those corporations suing things like Vrbo and Airbnb, saying you can't be in this area because we own it. To where if somebody buys a property, so 2-3 years ago, if you had a property and you said, oh, I'm going to try short-term rental, and you made more money, great. But if you look and you go, I can't find a property that cash flows because long-term rentals just don't make sense now. Interest rates are too high, prices are too high, rents aren't high enough. So I'm going to buy this place that will only make sense as a short-term rental. And then you lose the ability to do that. The HOA says no, the city says no, some rule or regulation changes. So that's the first concern. If somebody's buying properties that would cash flow, or at least, get a decent cash on cash return as a long-term rental, and then they benefit from short-term when they can, all for it. And I've got friends who do it, and Matt, maybe in your area it's very different, but my friends who do short-term rentals, none of their short-term rentals are less than 4 months. It's all 4 to 10. Not the traveling nurses thing, but what do they call them? Linemen. So they storm chasers. Sure. They'll come and say, hey, we're going to be here for 4 or 5 months. We need a crew. They'll do this. So they're making a ton of money long-term. They have a cleaning crew do it. So it's not very hands-on. Sure. It's not every, but in an area where you're seasonal and people are coming to hang out for a week and have a party, sure, that's more hands-on. But you charge a fee. Sure. For your cleaning company that's going to go in. So to me, that's not the concern. The concern is losing the ability to do it. And now you have an alligator. Yeah, and I think to your point, Dan, I would consider those midterms. I would consider those mid-tier. But they do it through Airbnb and Vrbo. Sure, absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I think it's a key differentiator, because I know that they're getting a premium over a long-term rental, but I actually like the mid-tier strategy a lot more than the STR. Yeah. It's a lot less hands-on. You can absolutely get in with different corporations that need them. I mean, I did traveling nurses for a while, 3, 6, 9 month, but usually it was 3 or 6 months terms. I did those for a while. Didn't love it, because for some reason the HR department in the local hospital consistently goes through different companies, and they don't want to own the rental. They want to let the company set up and take care of it, and they just give them the name. But there's so many moving parts to that. I was like, it's just not worth it. I can get almost as much going LTR, long-term rental. So I think that's a great point. Go ahead, Dion. So that was the first one. The first one is you could lose the ability to do it. The second thing is not so much a concern. It's something to be aware of if you're going to go short-term. It's the chronology of your rate. Yes. When you first open your short-term rental, you don't have any reviews. So you're going to have to post at lower than the area median to get some attention, to get people in there. Make sure you provide good service to get several reviews, so that you can then get your rate up to where it's better, sometimes better than the comparables in the area if your reviews are good enough. And then you have to watch market saturation. Yes. As there are more or less Airbnb short-term rentals in your area, you pretty much have to consistently, and they even have apps for this that track when it's a holiday weekend, when it's a certain month or whatever, to change your rates. So it's inconsistent. So that, take the time, like a long-term investor does. We know the area average rents to calculate the yield, to know if we can even look at a deal or not. If you have a short-term rental, consistently, another part of that hands-on is knowing where your rate should be. Changes based on how long, how many reviews, how many others there are in the area. And so that's a lot more hands-on than almost fire and forget.
Yeah.
Buy a rental, put a tenant into place, talk to them once or twice every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the model I like.
No, I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, those are the models that we really like, that LTR side. I can tell you that being in a beach area and one that turns into Siberia around middle of October, we have something called summer and winter rental. And so summer rental truly is basically like Labor Day weekend, or excuse me, Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. That's our summer. It's those 12 weeks. That's where you're going to make your money in a short-term rental market here. And so being in a beach town, that is consistent. Then you go to winter rental. What's really interesting is during the week, you know, for like a 2-bedroom, you might be $1,800 for a 2-bedroom apartment a week. And then in the winter time, that's $1,200 a month. And you have to sign on for the entire winter. So there's people around here that live seasonally where they literally they do the opposite, where they get really cheap rental rates in the winter time and they get to be down in the beach area. But it's because those people are literally just trying to cover their expenses. What I found, and I did the research on AirDNA and also just having talked to some other folks in the area, they said the goal is to just cover expenses in the winter months, but in most cases you're negative. In most cases you're negative. It's just any little bit helps. Any little bit more that I can go and put towards it helps. It's also the time for them to go in and rehab as well, because almost all of their money they need to make in that 12-week period. Imagine if you get something forecast where it's like a couple of weeks of rain and you start seeing cancellations or things like that. Like that's the thing that also scares me about that. But Mike, we had one more topic on this of making sure kind of one sector to and another sector to basically make sure that we're understanding the risk and conveying that risk to folks. What was number 3 for us?
I think we got to go syndication.
Yep.
Multifamily investing. Bigger is better. Again, bigger is better sometimes. Obviously the 3 of us, we want to do our own work. We trust ourselves, all of that. Syndication's kind of like Airbnb. Syndication started first in my world, right? They were like, hey, it's easy money, hands off. I sold apartment buildings in 19 because I thought cap rates were too low, which they were. They went lower, so whoever bought them won. But we are going to have a comeuppance in multifamily. Yeah. The debt structure is all bad, bridge debt. Anna Kelly and I have talked about it. She's like, man, I haven't seen a good deal in a long time. Yeah. Rents assumptions are bad. Rents are going to get soft because, again, we had a record rent increase, 14.6%. Talked about it this morning. Occupancy at 98.5%, record occupancy. Just something you learn when you study enough economic data is we usually revert to the mean. And right now, all the mean reversions are going to hurt syndications. And there's a lot of people who are syndicators aren't operators. They're essentially capital raisers.
They are. And
given the social media landscape, they can raise capital very easily and quickly on their name. Uh-huh. That works when the market's like this. When you start to have to call people and do a capital raise or say, hey, I know we told you to get your money back in 3 years. Sorry, it might be 13. It's going to hurt a lot of people. I hope people get their money out, but these people are trying to scoop equity. Like Ken McElroy says, not going to happen. The world's different. Rates are up higher than expected. Cap rates are going up. Occupancies are growing. Mean reversion is going to be nasty in the syndication space. So, I see some downside there.
Dion, your thoughts?
So I agree with Mike on, if you're going to partner with somebody and you can look at their track record and say, what kind of deals have you done? And what does your outcome reasonably look like? Okay, I'm going to partner with you on your next one. That's one thing. But if you look at a syndication, and I'm not going to name them, but let's say you become famous because of a podcast, and then you put your name on a bunch of syndications where you're not really doing the deal. And you don't know the track record of these people, but you're putting your name on it. And so you start getting emails saying, hey, join me on this syndication.
Yeah.
That name, like Mike said, brings you into the deal. And then looking at rent growth, 14 last year. I mean, and I've seen more in my area. Yep. The binder strategy was an average of 20 to 28% increase in my area at tenants' request. So rents have gone up, right? So syndications can go and are saying, let's just project a 5% increase for the next 3 years. That's a 15% increase in 3 years, where we could plateau. If those numbers have to happen for your deal to just make sense, because now you have your NOI looked at, you might not be able to sell, you might not be able to cash out refi, you might not be able to keep the loan without providing another big check. So here's where the big risk for syndications is, it's the easy button.
It is.
Who do I write the check to?
That's right.
Thanks. Send me the money in 3 to 5 years.
You don't
Instead
do the
of-
work. You don't have operation. You don't do research. You're betting on somebody else's doing that for you. And they're just capital raisers. It's going to be scary, man. It's going to be horrible.
So if you're that new investor who generally is kind of who we're talking to, I know we have some investors that have been doing this for, longer than us
Sure.
and have rentals, but still come in. If you've got 20, 30, 40 rentals, $2, $3, $4 million, and you take $100,000 and put it in the syndication and go, yeah, sure, great. If you've scrimped and saved and house hacked and done side hustles and avoided life creep, and you've got your $100,000 and you put that in a syndication, that is not a good strategy. I would not suggest that. I would not tap home equity to put it in a syndication. I would not borrow against a retirement account, empty a retirement account, pay the penalty, do that. I would not quite as far on the scale as crypto, but I would say a small percentage of your portfolio put into a high risk, no control asset like that. Maybe not for me, but for some people, and not for the newer investor.
Yeah, completely agree with you guys on that stuff. I think syndications is going to be very scary. Quite frankly, I know that Dion's not really looking for it, but I believe Mike and myself will have the largest buildings in our portfolio within the next 3 years. And we
Agreed.
will have some bad syndicators to thank for it. But doing the work yourself, I think that it really sounds sexy, right? To say, I mean, there's one that's advertising on television where I am. They're advertising an expected 17% return. Unexpected, guys, you got to watch the language. You got to watch the language. An expected 17% return.
What was that crypto that had the guaranteed 9 or 20% return?
Celsius. Celsius was
Celsius
one.
Luna.
Luna was another. Yep. So, well, and
The hits keep coming.
I mean, they're all, yeah, they're all getting crushed because they were offering these crazy returns. But giving people an example of the type of deal that a lot of people would syndicate, there was an awesome property the first time ever. It was an oceanfront property. It's perfect. It's a smaller one, but it's an oceanfront property, and we all know they can't create more buildings on the ocean because of zoning and codes and all this other crazy stuff. So very often you have to buy something that's existing. I did the math. If I put $1 million out of my pocket into the deal, my monthly return was negative $1,700.
Alligator.
Complete loser. And so I asked the agent, I said, I just need to make sure that I've got this right. This is the price, right? Yes. This is the unit count, right? Yes. This is the rent count, right? Yes. I'm confused. Do you know this is a $1,700 a month loss? If I buy this with any debt and I put $1 million into it, he's like, we're really just looking for a cash buyer. I was like, you're really just looking for an idiot, because no one's going to put that kind of money in there with that level of return. So people, trust me, what Mike and Dion said is exactly 1000% correct. There are people doing deals today now. They are using language like, we expect we believe there, we think that. Here's what we can tell you with experience. We know that it won't happen as if. It's not reality. So if you believe that that's an easy way to make money, easy money gets lost easily. We're just telling you, you'll want to do the work. If you believe that there's a syndication that you want to go into, understand that you need to scenario this. What if rents go down 7 or 10% next year? What happens? What happens? What is the debt structure in this deal behind it? Is it bridge debt? Heaven for if it is, run. Is it 3-year debt? Is it 5-year debt? What is the debt structure like? Is it an asset that Fannie Freddie asked them to take over, and so they gave them some really awesome favorable terms for half a decade? Okay, maybe we might talk about that. That might be something worth investigating. But do the work, make sure the math works, but make sure that you're giving it a scenario analysis of what if rents don't raise? What if we're in a recession? What if they're flat? Because in almost all of these syndication deals I see, none of them account for zero raise in rent. Zero of them. They all actually account for, if it's something being built, they all account for single digit year over year constantly. And I can tell you that won't happen in a recession. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Mike, tell them where they can find you, my friend.
One rental at a time. And I do a live stream 8 a.m. on Saturday, 60 minutes, your questions, my answers.
And what else will be occurring tomorrow, Michael, after that?
We are going to change lives. Matt and Dion are very simply, it's a very low bar they have to jump over. They're going to change hundreds, if not thousands of lives by talking about the sexy cheat code to wealth house hacking units.
Sure.
That's all you guys got to do tomorrow, guys. Change lives. That's it. 9 a.m.
Well, that seems easy enough. I'm going to just ride on Dion's coattails and let him do all the work and tell me I'm wrong. So Dion, where can everybody find you, my friend?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom.
As always, great hanging out with my three amigos. We're looking forward to it. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, give us some love. Why? Because we kind of earned it. We just dropped a ton of knowledge on you. So anyway, have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the time on the live stream tomorrow, and we'll see you in segment number 3. Thanks, gents.
Ciao.